Welcome to the putting green. On this DVD, I'm going to show you how to use these two unique putting tools, the Wally One Putt and the shaft bar. And when you think of it, putting makes up about 40% of your score. And so you should be out here on the putting green if you want to improve your scores. But yet very few people do spend a lot of time out on the putting green because it's boring. Now put your DVD on pause and go get your putter, and be sure that you have the training tools, because you can follow along with me right where you are, right in your living room, just as easily as I'm going to do this on this putting green. Now when we are putting, we want to have a very smooth stroke that's not jerky. And with putting, we're not looking at a lot of speed, we're not looking at a lot of power, but we want just a smooth stroke back and through to send the ball to the hole. And setup is so important. And what you need to do is be able to line up your putter with the way that your body's built, much like a straight shot. You know, everything has to be just lined up, just perfect, in order to stroke back and through and get that ball to go right in the hole. And also you have to have aim, because it is a target game and we're dealing with a little 4-inch hole. So you have to really set this blade correctly to the hole, and that's going to be a unique part about this training. And then the biggest thing about putting is the mental side, because people can really become basket cases putting. And that's where the routine is really going to come in and help you. When you go through the routine, you're going to be able to block out a lot of that interference and focus right in on just making that simple stroke back and through to the hole, making that putt every time. Now this stroke is not a power stroke like your full shot. You know, in your full shot, we're using a really around the body stroke. We're going to be using this type of a stroke. See, in a power stroke, the club goes around your body more. There's a rolling of the wrists and a setting of the wrists. And then we're talking about power. But with putting, it's really more of a pendulum stroke, where we're going more along this line, stroking like a grandfather clock. So we don't want to have that face opening and closing. We want to have it nice and square most of the time right to the hole. Now on a 5-foot putt, which is what I have here, in a dead straight putt, if you set up square and you're perfectly lined up with the blade to the middle of the cup, and on this stroke, when you bring this putter back, if the blade opens or closes only 2 degrees, now 2 degrees on 360 degrees, you can barely see it with your eye. But on this 5-foot putt, if it's open or closed, just 2 degrees, you're going to miss it to the right or the left. So that's why it's so important that you have your hands placed on the club, because really when you set your hands, you really need to have them set to the face of the club. You can't have them going off at different directions, because that's going to move the face right down at the bottom. So when you put your hands on there, you want to have them balanced and square with the face. And also, because we don't want that rotation, we've got to take out the club from down in the fingers with the pad on top, because that promotes setting of the wrists and rotation of the wrist. So we're going to take that out, and we want to have the putter blade go more up into the palm. So that's going to eliminate the setting and also the rolling motion. So here's a great way that you can practice this. I call it the gravity drill. So you simply take your normal grip, and then you hold the putter right in front of you like this, and then just let the gravity pull the head of the club down, and you'll see that the club grip will slip up into your palms. It'll come from out of the fingers into the palms. And then you want to line your elbows up so that it's perfectly square. Now, this is where the shaft bar comes in handy, because with the shaft bar, you can see it hooks in on top of the shaft, and you slide it up to where it's snug. And then you want to line up this bar with the leading edge of the putter. And now when I do this drill, I bring it up, I let gravity drop it down, it's into my palms. Now you can see that I want to balance my elbows to my shoulders. So you can see everything is balanced just the way that I'm built. And then when you do move down, you simply tilt down from your waist and sit down, and now everything is dead square, and I'm in a perfect position to make my stroke. Now from here, the stance, I want to have my feet about shoulder width, and for ball position, on a putt, you want to have the ball placed right at the bottom of the arc so that it strikes the ball. Now, one super way to feel that is to simply take a penny and a dime and put it down on the ground, or you may put it down in your living room on the carpet, but you want to take a penny and a dime, and you want to put the penny down and the dime on top of it and put it down on the ground. Then you get your grip, your arms are balanced, bow to the ball, and then try to pick a nice place in the middle of your stance and stroke just above it, back and forth, and then gradually go down to where, if you've got it in the right position, it should just simply brush off the dime off of the penny. And what that's going to show you is that point is a very flat place at the bottom. That's where the ball should be. There's a little flat place about 4 inches wide right down where the ball is, and that's where the blade comes down and is real parallel to the ground, and that's where you should place the ball. So that's a good way to feel the right position of the ball. Also, you want to have your eyes over the ball. You don't want them way out on the outside or too far on the inside. And the reason for that is, as you look to the hole, you want to have your eyes where you can tilt your head and look straight into the middle of the hole. And one way to test that is to simply take a ball and hold it over your eye, over the ball, and then drop it, and it should drop right down parallel to where the ball is, or right on the ball every time. So I think this is perfect here, and you can see it's dropped straight down parallel to the ball and the line. So that shows you where your ball position is. That shows you when you bend over and when you set the blade to the hole. And so from this position, I'm in a nice balanced position in order to make that nice repetitive, smooth stroke. Now, there are some problem areas that I see with people putting. Number one is they have excessive rotation of the blade when they stroke, and that becomes very easy when people are used to making a full swing, and they'll take the shoulder back first. They've got that rotation, and even when you're down here and you're thinking of a nice pendulum stroke, the tendency is to still start back with a little rotation of the shoulder, and you can see what that's doing. It's going to pull the face off the line, and I'm not going to have a nice straight back and straight through pendulum motion. The other thing is, people don't have a routine. They come up to the ball, they don't know how to stand consistently, they don't get set up, lined up, and so one of the things that we're going to really work on is having a set routine so that you can go into it and do it over and over and over again. And the other thing is, I see people that they move their body when they stroke. They'll have a little shift in their body, and what that does is that throws that face off the line, and they won't be able to make that nice squareness of contact and keep the face nice and straight right at the bottom of the arc. So you want to just lock in your body. You want to feel like there's a vise that's got your hips locked and a vise that's got your body locked, so that you can just swing that pendulum motion backwards and forwards through the ball. And then the last thing is tension. People get that death grip. They call it white knuckles. And so what we're going to help you to do is to be able to relax and to be able to make that repetitive stroke back and through and sending the ball right into the middle of the hole. Now, on the straight putt, which we have here, the shaft bar is really built for that stroke. And like I showed you earlier, you just clip it on the shaft, pull it up to where it's tight, set this top bar to the face, and now as you use gravity into the palms and we bend forward, now we have a nice line here that's totally square with the face of the club. And when you're practicing your straight putts, you want to set up and have a station to set into. In other words, you want to take a club and lay it down, and I'm going to practice this 5-footer here. And what you want to do is you set the club just to the left edge of the cup. Now you know that's straight. Now when you come in and you putt, all you do is you put this bar right over the shaft. And if the bar is straight and the bar's lined up with the face, then you know you've got the face totally square to the hole. I find it's best when you're practicing on your putting green to stripe your balls. Now there's some great little markers that you can buy. You can put a little plastic thing and make a stripe around the equator of the ball. And this is going to be really great for you to practice with. And then also when you play, you can use this when you're out on the golf course. It's totally legal. A lot of the pros on the PGA Tour, you will see them use a stripe on their ball for this very purpose. But for the straight putt, we're going to take that stripe and we're going to put it down parallel to the shaft. And if it's parallel to the shaft, now it's aimed right at the middle of the hole. So here's how you practice. You want to get your grip lined up with the arms. It's kind of like a crossbow, isn't it? You know it's right. And when you bend forward, you want to just sit down. And the other thing that's really neat about this is you can see on most putters you have a line also that comes right into the back of the putter. This, of course, is going straight towards the hole. This is another thing that's really going to help you on your straight putts is you basically have the line on the ball now. You can bring the line on the back of the putter square with that. And now you know everything is square because now when you rock your shoulders backwards and forwards, the ball's going to go right in the middle of the hole. The feeling should be as if the shoulders, it's like you're rocking a baby. This is the power source in the stroke. The shoulders just rock, and this Y that is formed with the club shaft in your arms, we call it a wide Y, that stays intact. And so you're just basically rocking it back and forth like a clock, rolling the ball end over end into the middle of the hole. So if you want to practice, you can just put your stripe balls down along the shaft and then this is a great way to come in and practice. You just simply go back and through and roll it in to the next one. Now you can see I'm not making a really big backstroke and forward stroke. A rule of thumb is for every foot of distance that you putt, you only need to bring the putter back about 1 inch. I see a lot of people, they'll have a 5-foot putt and they bring that putter back like 10 inches. And then a lot of times they'll decelerate coming through. So 1 inch for every foot on the putt. Here's how we use the Wally 1 putt for straight putts. It shrinks the hole from the 4 inches down to 2. We simply put it in the hole and it has a nice round bottom to sit perfectly in and snug. We want to aim it so that it's just perfectly square to our line. You can just adjust it around, just kind of dial it around a little bit. And what this does is it shrinks the hole down to 2 inches and it has you focus on a very small area right out in front of the hole. Now the pros, a lot of times when you're on the tour, and of course I did this when I was on the tour, I would take a dime and put it down and I would practice. A lot of times I'd start my practice putting to a dime because what I'm doing here now is I'm training my eyes to focus on a little small spot there on the green, and then I'd kind of work it, rolling it over the dime. It's amazing how many times I can hit the dime and then I get to the big hole and all of a sudden it looks smaller than a dime. But that's the way that golf is. See, it's a mental game. So when you practice to a dime, what you want to do is transfer that feeling to the 1 putt, and you want to always focus in on a small piece of the cup to set the blade to, and that's how you work with the 1 putt. And then again, you always want to use your striped ball with the 1 putt. I have my teaching station here, and I come into the ball, and I line up my line on the putter. I get my grip, perfect. And now I'm just going to work backwards and forwards through and roll it right into the 1 putt. And you repeat this over and over again so that when you do take out the 1 putt, the hole is going to look like a manhole cover. But you still always want to pick a spot out on the cup to aim to. And that's really going to help you in your practice with the one putt. Now let's combine the two tools, and now you're really working on your stroke. We simply put the one putt back in. We're shrinking the hole. We'll put the shaft bar on. Now we're working on our perfect alignment. We've got the one putt in there. And always get that perfect grip. Always start with it up here. Let it just fall into your palms. Get them balanced. Tilt. We'll set our line there. And then it's just a matter of back and through and work on your stroke. This is the way you really get consistent with your stroke, especially with the straight putts, so that when you go out on the golf course, you're not going to worry about the ball missing left or right. You're going to set it on a small spot, set that blade right on a small spot. You're going to set your line right towards that spot, and then we simply rock our shoulders backwards and forwards and roll it right into that spot on the front lip of the cup. Let's talk about breaking putts. The best way to read them is, first of all, when you come up to the green, take and survey the whole green and just see where the lay of the land is. And then also think about dumping a bottle of water right up by the hole and seeing where it's going to go and how fast it's going to go. So on this particular putt, what I'm going to do is open the cap and pour it down right here where the hole is. And you can see that that water is running pretty fast down that slope. So that means that the ball is going to go in that direction. It's going to be pretty fast. So that's going to give me a pretty good idea on this particular putt of just how fast that ball is going to go and how it's going to turn to the left down into the hole. Now, one of the major problems that amateurs have, and pros alike, is when they set up to their ball, and when you look at that hole, your eyes are automatically going to go to the closest point of the hole. And if you're looking at the hole from here, the closest point of the hole is right here at the bottom side of the hole. And you're saying, well, what does that have to do with the putt? Well, what happens is when you get up to the putt, your eyes are going to tell your body to putt to that spot. And so there's going to be a natural inclination to putt towards that bottom lip. The ball is going to be sent towards where the eyes look. So amateurs typically miss the putt on the low side because they're looking at that lower front edge. That's why the Wally One putt is so powerful, because it helps to eliminate the front edge when you put it into the cup. Now on this particular breaking putt, what we're going to do is we're going to take the one putt and we're going to put it into the hole. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to just kind of crank it a little bit this way. Immediately what you're going to see that happened is I covered up that low point on the bottom of the cup. All I see now is this point where I want the ball to enter. And so what this one putt is going to do, it trains your brain to focus in on where you want the ball to enter the cup rather than down at that lower lip. The more you practice with this, then the better you're going to get at determining and seeing that ball roll into the cup. And that's very much like a tunnel. One of the nice things about the one putt is you're going to have two little bars that come with the one putt, and you just stick them in the holes in the back. And then what that does is that allows you to make a little tunnel. And of course you can use these in your office for a straight putt and putt to it. Secondary use. And on this particular one, this is kind of what you want to see, is like a tunnel. And then the balls should look kind of like this. As they come in, you should see this type of a look as the balls come back to your point. This is what it should look like. You can see that I've started the balls out this way, they're rolling along, and then they come right into the tunnel. And that's the visual picture that you should have in your mind on your breaking putts. So when you work with the one putt, We're going to put it in, crank it around to about 4 o'clock, almost 3 o'clock. And then again, now you've got your stripe ball, which is really going to help you with this particular one. You determine where you need to start the ball to make it curve into the hole. You take your stripe ball, and you're going to aim that out. And this one, I think it's going to be probably about right in here is where I'm going to have to start the ball so that it comes into the hole. And then I come in, always getting the grip down in the palms, setting my elbows, setting the white line to the line, and then I want to stroke it through, just out, trusting my stroke, and let it go right into the cup. When you practice like this, it really trains your brain to visualize the curve. Your focus is in on where you want the ball to enter rather than that front lip. And the more that you do this, then the more your mind's going to be able to look and find that point on the cup where you want to let the ball enter, and then you just bring it back, and then you conceptualize the roll. So here again, after you've worked with the Wally one putt, then you want to take the one putt out of the hole because you're not going to be able to use it when you're on the golf course. And then you want to go ahead and practice with your stripe ball because you're going to do the same thing when you're out on the golf course. So on this particular putt, I'm going to take my stripe and aim it out there about 4 to 6 inches to the right. Get my grip, my stance, set in, and then I'm going to look and see where I want that ball to enter. That's where my focus is because I've trained my mind to do that. And then I trust my stroke to go back and through and put it right into the hole. You noticed it went right over where I was looking. Let's cover long breaking putts. Now we have about a 25-foot putt here, and even the pros, they only make about 1 out of 10 here. So lighten up on yourself if you don't make it. Now how do you practice the long breaking ones? Well, first of all, you've got to take your one putt and put it in the hole. And then again, here I'm going to read the green. Imagine the water going down on the green. I'm going to put this in and dial it around to about maybe 330. I'm thinking that's about 330. And then I come back. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to imagine rolling the ball through a gate out there about halfway to the hole. So what I'm going to do is build a gate. I'm going to start with it real wide. And the idea here is to practice the roll of the ball through the gate to the hole. So I'm going to line up for the middle of that gate. I'm going to try to roll it through the gate and then down to the hole. Not bad. Then what you do is you just narrow the gate down a little bit until you get it to where you can roll it right through the gate and start getting them real close to going in. So here again, I'm getting my stroke, rolling it through the gate, down to the hole. Now that was a little bit high, so I'm going to pull it down in a little bit. Well, you get the picture of what I'm doing is ultimately you're going to narrow it down to where you're getting it right through the gate and it's going right down into the Wally one putt. Then you can begin by working your line and setting it for the gate. And what you're really doing here is you want to build this mental picture because this mental picture is going to guide your ball to the hole. The great thing about that is, see, I'm covering up that front lip and you're really focusing in on where you want the ball to enter. So this is a great setup for you to practice your long breaking putts. And then if you want to add the shaft bar, you can even do this because remember we talked about every putt is a straight putt? So now I can line this up. And you can see now if I putt right along this, it's going to go through there, and all I do is I take my shaft bar and put it on the shaft, bring it up, adjust it to the face. Now you've really got the combo going. Club down in the palms, face, set up, it's over that. And now what I'm going to do is just try to feel the distance to roll it through. But you get the idea of what I'm doing. You know, this is how you're really going to make your practice fun, and you're going to have a great time, you know, setting these things up. You know, probably pretty soon you're going to have guys coming over and looking at you and going, what are you doing? You know, and you're going to be showing everybody how to use the one putt. Feeling the distance for the long putts is critical. You know, you're not going to get that blade square to make a lot of these putts, but one way to practice the distance is to just pick the edge of the green. You can see there's that dark edge way up there, and then go through and get your grip, your stance. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to always take a practice stroke, and you want to take a practice stroke before most of your putts just to get a feeling for how far back you need to go with your pendulum, because the power is really going to come in your arm swing, keeping that Y back and through, and not in the amount of push you get with the hands. So as I set up to this, I'm going to feel that distance up there and take a nice long stroke, stroke it through. I'm going to try to roll it right up so that it gets right up to the edge of the green. Now that was a pretty good stroke. It's only about 6 inches short. So rehearse again, taking that Y back and through, keeping my body real still, also keeping the putter low on the ground. Feel the distance, stroke. And when you practice this way, you're really drilling into your body. You're gaining these feelings so that you can take them out onto the golf course. And it doesn't matter whether it's a 50-foot putt, which is what we have here, or a 30-foot putt. Feel it, stroke it, and you can see that's even closer. So this is how you work on your long putts. Remember, the power comes from the amount of arm swing and the pendulum swing rather than the wrists and the hands. Let's do the wrap up for putting. The routine is so important that you do this with every putt, whether it's a long one or a short one. I've hit it to the green here. I'm going to put my ball back down, and then I'm going to come from behind the ball here, and now I'm surveying this putt to just see how much break it's going to go, whether I want to start it out there at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. I should imagine the Wally 1 putt in there. And so I'm going to look for where I want this ball to enter and come back and then look at the slope. And then what I'm going to do is set the stripe right to where I want it to start. And this is what you can do. You just set it where you want it to start. And then we come into the ball, and we've already got lined up. Now we get the grip, get our arms balanced, bow to the ball. And now we're going to take a practice stroke. And when we do the stroke, we're going to keep the blade nice and low, feeling the distance that we need to get it into the cup. And then we set the line on the back of the putter to the line. And now all I'm thinking about here is just stroking for distance. Take a deep breath. Get all of that tension out, and I'm going to rock the shoulders back and through and let it roll right down into the cup. Practice your routine, work with the drills and the training aids, and enjoy your putting.